moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to move over to working with Kedar Pavji. He is one of our program managers at NSIN. He is responsible for the hackathon program. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and hand it over to Kedar to introduce his team and walk us through what Distributed Spectrum has done post-hackathon.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kedar Pavgi. I am the HACS Program Manager here at the National Security Innovation Network. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the HACS program is really centered on sourcing novel solutions and novel concepts to challenging Department of Defense problems. I've been in this position for a little bit over a year now, and I've had the pleasure of running about 4 hackathons during that period. One of those hackathons, which took place in February of this past year, was centered on the idea of vehicle cybersecurity. So as vehicles become more autonomous or semi-autonomous, how do you maintain their cyber resiliency? And how do you ensure that the systems maintain secure from potential attacks from adversaries? The top team from that hackathon is actually sitting on the screen beside me, Distributed Spectrum. These gentlemen are 3 students at Harvard University who have a fantastic idea to identify the RF spectrum and figure out different types of threats that may be emanating from the spectrum itself. So with that, gentlemen, welcome to this virtual stage here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so as Kedar mentioned, we're all students. We all go to Harvard, we're all seniors. And over the past year, or a little bit over a year, we've been working on Distributed Spectrum. And as a company, our goal is to characterize threats in the radio frequency spectrum by detecting signals, classifying them, and in some instances, localizing the source of those signals. And as we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit, we really got our start through the NSIN HACS program. And through NSIN HACS and a few other programs, we've really been able to take our idea from basically just an idea into a solution that we're now trying to develop in the field.
Exactly. So I'm Ben, this is Alex, and this is Isaac, and we're really excited to kind of talk you through our journey as a startup, and particularly through a bunch of programs through NSIN and working with KR in particular.
So I guess what I'd like to really learn about from you guys is how did you all find each other and form a team even before the hackathon itself?
Yeah, so this actually started many years ago when we first arrived on campus at Harvard. We all became friends through classes and just different activities that we were doing with each other. And we realized pretty early on that we liked working with each other. We complement each other pretty well. Our backgrounds are all complementary, but relatively technical. My background is in systems and network security. Ben is a little bit more on the business side, but also studies computer science. Alex is electrical engineering. So just through some of those projects that we did through school, we realized that our skills complement each other really well. And we also knew that we basically wanted to start a more non-school facing company together. So the pandemic gave us the perfect opportunity for that because we didn't want to go back for our senior year last year when all classes were online. And so we were talking. We just said, hey, do we have any cool technical ideas that we might be able to turn into a company like Distributed Spectrum?
Yeah, so Harvard basically said over the last 2 summers ago now that all classes were going to be online for the upcoming year. So we all kind of collectively decided, hey, let's take the full year off so we can work on a company. And that's what we did. We took the year off, work on the company. Now we're going back to school, and then hopefully we'll be able to keep working on the company after we graduate.
So talk to me about that, the actual technology itself. Can you all, explain what it does and how you all came to the decision, to focus on the specific aspects that you did in the hackathon and beyond that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the hackathon actually helped us kind of crystallize our ideas into real operational problems that we could solve with our technology. So our original technological idea was to apply a variety of machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques to basically process data coming in from the radio spectrum. And, we had been taking this to a bunch of different fields that we thought would be interesting. The Department of Defense and the government in general was one potential avenue that we had been considering, but we'd also been thinking about various industry applications and a few other things like that. But we entered the hackathon, and through the hackathon, we got the opportunity to interact with stakeholders in the Army that were on the ground in vehicles like Bradley's or something else. And we learned about operational problems that were resulting from that. For example, radios malfunctioning due to unforeseen instances that could either be problems due to hardware, could be jamming, could be spoofing of communications, other things along those lines. So that opportunity through the hackathon to interact with real stakeholders allowed us to take our technology and help develop it further for actual operational use cases.
Yeah, so the whole idea really started out, which is interesting, as a potential thesis that Alex was planning to write. And Alex is a very is a big radio enthusiast, and so he'll spend a lot of time playing with amateur radios and like kind of figuring out all the cool things you could do with them. And he had this really cool idea that instead of relying on very expensive and finely tuned radio sensors, if we actually had a network of very cheap sensors and some really smart algorithms, we could have the same exact performance on a lot of the important sensing tasks, but for a fraction of the cost. So that kind of got us started of like, hey, there's a cool idea here, and the advancing technology that we're all interested in can accomplish something really cool. And then as Alex mentioned, the question became, okay, well, what do we actually apply this to? And that having the NSIN hackathon be able to connect us and really show us some of the pain points was a great first step for us to say, okay, yeah, here's a market, here's a pain point that we can really start to address. Yeah.
So to pull on that thread a little bit, what did you learn at the hackathon? And I know you all spoke to a number of different stakeholders in the Army, and you mentioned the radio jamming portion as one thing that you did learn. But what else did you learn through that hackathon experience?
So I think one of the main takeaways that we got from the hackathon in particular was the importance of situational awareness and how situational awareness can kind of make or break a mission or even routine activities. So our original application idea for the technology was more on the side of detecting various low power transmitters, for example, in an environment like a smart city, then developing information and analytics based on that. But throughout the hackathon, we really learned that having awareness of the radio spectrum can essentially allow you to easily mitigate problems before they actually become problems, and also identify threats in the field. So that was really a critical leap that we were able to ascertain as a result of the conversations that we had with government stakeholders.
It's like one thing to have the technical idea of, hey, we can do signal localization for a cost 2 orders of magnitude lower than existing systems. That was like why we said, okay, maybe we have an actual product. But through Mad Hacks, we realized that signal localization is just like one feature that we have in the greater package of situational awareness, like real-time analysis of signals, which is one of the things that we just took for given in our system. We didn't think that was that, particularly amazing. Like, we can do real-time analysis. That's cool. And it turns out that's actually mission critical. So it was very helpful for us to frame the problem.
And I think one thing that's just really important, I'm sure a lot of other early stage startups trying to break into the DoD space know this, is like, it's very hard to establish early points of contact or really talk to people who are going to be able to tell you what the real problems were. And so that was a lot of our struggle early on, was to figure out like, yeah, we have this technology, but how do we actually apply it, and who's actually going to be interested? And so one of the big takeaways that we had from Mad Hacks was just, hey, we have now a group of people, a group of experts who NSIN brought in to talk to us, who we know we can rely on, who we know we can have good, accurate, and up-to-date information about what the big pain points, what the big problems that they're facing are.
Have you talked to some of these experts since the hackathon?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically through the hackathon, we had been able to get in contact with a variety of different individuals. And then one of the things that we've learned as a startup is that every time we talk to somebody, we should ask them who we should talk to next. So as a result of that, we've basically been able to, have this continuously branching tree of people that we've been able to speak to. So that's been immensely helpful, and definitely one of the biggest benefits that we've had.
Yeah, the other thing that's been useful about just talking to people from the hackathon, because that was mainly focused on Army, is that, as you build this tree of networking and talking to people within the DoD, you find that, RF situational awareness isn't just a problem for Army ground vehicles. And so it makes it like a lot more, useful to us, because we can see, okay, we can take this same, modular system that we're developing and apply it to an Air Force thing or, a SOCOM thing, for example.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. So you mentioned that there are potential joint implications for this. Where do you guys see, your future within the DoD, and what have you learned so far based on those conversations?
Yeah, so as a direct result of those conversations, we learned that one of the most important characteristics of our platform that we can develop is interoperability. So our goal is to develop a modular radio frequency spectrum monitoring system that can be interoperable with a lot of different technologies and can utilize similar algorithms to solve a variety of different operational challenges. So as a direct result of those conversations, we're able to learn that if we develop a platform that can perform basic signal detection and basic signal classification, we can then tailor that system easily for a variety of different government stakeholders, which makes it basically easier to validate one system and then apply it to another environment that would benefit from having a system that's already been fielded. And it also makes it a lot easier for us to basically sell this technology for a variety of different use cases.
And additionally, one of the other big use cases that we only really came across from talking to kind of this additional network of NSIN related contacts was the idea of radio transmitter intrusion detection. And that's something that we're really interested in and fits the technology that we're building really well. So this is something that we weren't even really aware was a huge problem, but makes a lot of intuitive sense. If you have either an indoor or an outdoor area that you are trying to monitor and that you care about knowing if there are phones, Bluetooth devices, watches, anything that could be transmitting and exfiltrating data, it's really hard to actively monitor that. And there's currently no good scalable solution that is not extremely expensive. And so just through kind of continuing, as Alex said, to kind of branch through that network and hear from so many different people who are facing these problems, that was another huge opportunity that we were able to identify. And through NSIN Vector, as I'm sure we'll talk about later, also find leads on the first application for how we could actually do that.
Yeah, and actually that's a great segue. The hackathon did end about, if my math is fuzzy, about 6 months ago at this point, 7 months ago. That's a pretty substantial amount of time since, you all talked to those mentors and then followed up with them. What have you been working on over that period of time? And granted that I think a new semester just started a few weeks ago, is that right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so basically right after the hackathon, so we won the hackathon, and then right after that, we were basically invited to participate in the NSIN Vector program, which is an accelerator program for companies that won their cohorts of, for example, hacks programs or hacking for defense or a variety of different other NSIN programs. So the purpose of Vector was to help startups that did well in these early stage NSIN programs and kind of take them to the next step. So get their technology ready to be marketed to commercial and to government and DoD stakeholders, and then actually put you in front of those stakeholders themselves and help you practice pitching. And then at the end of the Vector program, there was a competition where you basically pitch to a panel of judges, and then the judges will rank each company and then declare a winner. So we were actually the winners of our cohort of our Vector program. And through that experience, we were able to get, as Ben mentioned, really good contacts to explore other avenues for our technology, such as RF transmitter intrusion detection. So that was a really good learning experience for us, and it definitely helped us present our technology a lot better and speak the language of Department of Defense better. Just because, before this, we really didn't know anything. We had a lot of acronyms to learn. So we're slowly getting there, but it's getting a little bit better. But yeah, so since Vector, we've basically been executing a variety of different contracts, and we're right now actively looking to essentially get our technology into the hands of more operational partners that we can help field it with.
Yeah, and that's particularly from the perspective of basically system integration, because after Vector, we basically had a technology that could run on its own. We can do transmitter intrusion detection, signal classification, RF situational awareness, but that's useless if we can't put it onto, a Bradley, for example, or whatever system that has a software-defined radio that we can add our, modular software to be able to actually get insights from the radio spectrum. So as Alex mentioned, we're currently working on a couple of contracts as a subcontractor on a phase 2 SIBR for doing exactly this, but we're always looking for more partners across agencies to integrate our technology and to increase our technical readiness level.
Yeah, and a couple other things to quickly mention. One is, we are, of course, a dual use venture, so we're also looking into commercial projects as well, and are currently putting in a bid to help out with mapping cell phone coverage across the state. So we're looking into opportunities like that as well. And then the other big thing to mention, of course, and obviously, Kedar, this is like having not only the contacts throughout the Army and other groups that we've talked to, but also in NSIN itself. So we've had a great relationship with Kedar and been able to speak with you every 2 weeks for the past 6 months. And so the opportunities that we've had through that to present in front of the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Group, in front of SOCOM, and in front of many other groups that are now presenting us even more opportunities has also been really helpful as well.
Yeah, so like every time we'd have a big presentation coming up, we'd be like, hey, Kedar, do you know somebody who does this? And they're like, yeah, let me just reach out to somebody, we'll find them. So it's been really helpful for us to be able to create a presentation and then actually give that presentation to somebody who knows what they're talking about and can give us operational and good feedback. So that's been extremely helpful.
You guys are making me blush, and you can't see it through this Instagram quality lighting. So, no, but what I'd like to hear from you a little bit more is, you've been trying to tackle the beast that is the DoD for the last 6 months now, and DoD breaking into the market, as we've heard from the team before us, is a difficult proposition. So based on that, how do you guys see yourself positioning both for the defense sector and the commercial sector, which you just brought up? How do you guys plan on working both those angles over the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically one of the things that we're trying to do right now is take our technology from a TRL5, which is what we're at right now, to a more validated state. And that will allow us to take our technology and put it into real operational environments. And then we think at the same time, we're going to be able to use those same advancements in the commercial sector to do the same things, where we take our technology and use it in real operational environments in the commercial sector. So that's one of the things we're working on right now. We're also basically looking to incorporate new algorithmic developments. So we're always working on improving the technology side of our technology, not just the business. So there's a few different avenues.
Yeah. So as Alex mentioned, really the main goal is integration and being able to test our systems in real operational environments. So we're doing that right now on the phase 2 sitter that we're currently subcontracting on, where we're integrating our sensors into an existing RF sensing platform and LiDAR sensing platform. We're doing that as well with the commercial application that we talked about for mapping cell coverage, and we're also planning to just look for more and more partners we can work with. So we're planning to go to GIFX next year to be able to search for even more partners and show off what we can do in a real operational environment. And I guess really, the next steps is right now we're currently working on a good number of projects to perform these integrations, but really we just want to do as much as possible. So we're still looking for as many partners as we can find who are willing to let us integrate and show what we can actually do to improve their situational awareness or whatever RF sensing tasks they have using our technology.
Yeah, and somewhat the longer term goal on the DoD side is to basically have this solution that is relatively inexpensive that can just be added on to any existing system to provide radio situational awareness. So one of the things that we're actively developing when looking to increase our TRL is making it modular enough that we can give data outputs in open standards and integrate with any software defined radios that have already been purchased, for example. So the idea is if you have a bunch of radios lying around that you want to be able to utilize to provide you insights to your to mission or to force, then you can just use our technology basically straight out of the box with minimal development time. That's a couple of years down the line and obviously requires more validation in operational environments, but that's what we're looking to get to, because we think that no warfighter should ever go into the field without having full situational awareness.
And I think that speaks to one of the very interesting pivots that we've kind of made as a result of a lot of our conversations and experience over the past 6 months. Is when we started, we were thinking that we were really joint hardware and software company. We were going to make the radio sensors and make the software that controlled them and sell those. And really what we kind of discovered is that the software is the most important part, and that having a platform that, as Isaac mentioned, is really hardware agnostic and can take existing radio systems, gather the data from them, and then perform a lot of post-processing and analysis is really what's most important. So, we are certainly able to provide hardware that we think is, acceptable for the mission, but also understand that a lot of people already have existing hardware that they're just not getting enough out of it. So that's where we really think we can come in and serve as an extra layer to give you more intelligent insights from data that you already have.
Yeah, Ben, to pull on that thread just a little bit, and the pivot you all mentioned from being a joint hardware software company to just software specific only. I'm interested to hear, that's a pretty key lesson that you've picked up over the last 6 months. If you were to, go back in time to call it July of 2020, what would you all tell yourselves then? If you had to, change your approach or, modify the way you all started the company or developed the product, what sort of advice would you give yourselves back then? And what sort of advice would you start giving folks who are interested in starting dual use companies now?
Yeah. So I think number one thing is we teach ourselves what we know now about writing proposals and making presentations to the DoD, because I think we had no idea what we were doing back then.
What do you mean by that?
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, so there is obviously a bunch of technical terms that you have to be able to use. You have to be able to speak DoD so that people know what you're talking about. That's something that, comes just from talking to more people and listening to other people's presentations. And that's sort of one thing. There's this other just intangible idea that we somewhat knew from general business practices, but is really, really critical to be able to actually work with the DoD, is you need to know what the pain points are. It was really unclear to us, because we hadn't talked to tons of stakeholders through the DoD, what physical hardware people had and what problems they actually had. It turns out through our conversations that situational awareness is much more of a problem than data exfiltration. That doesn't mean that data exfiltration isn't a problem that we don't want to solve. That we do, and we think our technology is uniquely specific for that, which is why we initially pursued that. But it's so much of a smaller market because not having radio situational awareness is directly a risk to force, right? So we just didn't know that, and we could have tailored our product to that much earlier. And the other thing is, like, as I mentioned like a while ago, like hardware agnostic stuff. Like, we didn't know that would matter. We were like, oh, we can use cheap hardware, and that's the real sell. That's not, for most cases, not the real sell. It's that we have a software platform that can integrate with radios that you already own, or we can provide really cheap, open source, commercial off the shelf radios just to use with this. So like there were those like little insights that we got from having conversations that would have shaped like our development, and we just should have had them earlier. I mean, we started having those conversations maybe 5 or 6 months into our company. If we'd done that from day one, we'd probably be 5 or 6 months ahead of where we are right now.
And
so, no, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, I think the other thing that, we've kind of been doing well throughout, but that I wish, if we'd been more consistent about just recognizing how powerful this was early on, I think we'd be better off, is kind of as we were talking about earlier, just talk to as many people as possible. Never say no to a conversation, even if you think it's going to be completely useless and you're not getting everything out of it. Like, there have been plenty of times where we've had a call that we're like, we're not going to get anything out of this. Like, this is not relevant to anything that we're doing at all. And then either that call itself or, a call 3 calls down the line from that one turns out to be incredibly helpful and actually gives us our next big opportunity. So I think just having the ability to say yes to every conversation and just branch out as much as possible to reach out into learning more about the things that we're already interested in and hearing about completely new ideas that we hadn't even thought of before.
So one idea I want to, we have with the last couple of minutes we have left is you speak to the idea of, or you mentioned the idea of speaking DoD, right? And as an early stage venture, you came headfirst into the acronyms, the jargon, everything that is associated with the Department of Defense and all of its entities. What was the best experience you had navigating that specific portion of the work?
So I think one thing that really helped us a lot was the NSIN Vector program, and we partnered with Decode and had a very rigorous course curriculum that had videos just walked us through. Here are all the acronyms you need to know. Here's how federal budgeting works. So here's how you have to position yourself based on different groups. And like, here is what each of the different groups, here's what their priorities are. Here are the things they care about. And here's how you can like step into their shoes. And I think if you look at the presentations that we're giving now versus ones that we're giving 6 months ago, before it was here's kind of the general purpose, here's what we're doing, and here's why we think it's cool and going to be helpful. And the presentations we're able to give now are, here are the pain points that a group is having, here is exactly how we're going to solve that problem, and here's how we can fit into all your budgetary and other requirements that you know how to fit. And I think just having that transition has helped us a lot and will continue to help us as we keep to get better and better at that.
Yeah, like one specific example of that was, I think there was like a 50-minute video module on the federal acquisition regulations, and we were like, man, I really don't want to watch this. And then we watched, like waiting through it, we were watching it. It's like, okay, like this is starting to get useful. Then like probably around like the 20-minute mark, we're like, okay, yeah, this is probably information we're using. So it was things like that where it's information we wouldn't necessarily seek out originally, but we found it to be super helpful.
Yeah, and it's the type of thing that as you do the work for it, it feels like kind of a slog, especially as a new company, because you want to be doing technical work and you want to be having conversations and whatever. And you don't feel like it's having that much of impact until you look at a proposal that you write like 3 months later. And like we submitted some like, phase 1 SIBR applications in like, last August and September. And it's quite obvious why some of those were not funded. Like, it's just like the types of things you learn, they don't feel that amazing. And you realize that your proposal has like 10 things that are just like glaringly wrong with it because like you just didn't realize that what you were saying was not the language that you should be speaking.
Well, out of curiosity, what were some of those 10 things that were wrong with that proposal?
There was one proposal where we gave like a fictional story to try and describe our technology a little bit better, where we had like characters that we named, and it was a mess. So
it was one of those things that works really well like in school when you're doing a homework assignment or something like that, but then once you're transitioned to the DoD, it's just not what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So guys, with the last couple minutes we have left here, I want to just ask you on a more personal note here, how are you all balancing the startup work with normal life as seniors in college here?
Yeah, it's been really busy. So one of the things that has worked well for us is none of us have significant class requirements on Fridays. So we've been trying to schedule all of our meetings for distributed spectrum on Fridays, which has been working out really well. Yeah, go ahead.
And I think all of us kind of in the prior years have had very big extracurricular responsibilities. So for example, Isaac and I had been very involved in the student consulting group here at Harvard, but for senior year, we've really kind of cleared out our schedules so that we're very much focused on our classes, but the extra 20, 30 hours a week that we used to spend on extracurriculars are now really spent doing distributed spectrum work. So I think, it's all work that we're all living together, so it's very easy to like keep each other accountable and make sure we're actually doing work. But I think it's working out very well.
Is there the possibility of adding more distributed spectrum members in the future?
Of course, and Kedar, if you want to join, we're always.
I am comfortable in this office right now.
But no, absolutely. I think we have definitely some more planning to do in terms of how we transition from as we've been doing this as students doing this as well to what this looks like as a full-time company. And certainly adding additional employees and things like that will certainly be part of that.
Well, excellent, gentlemen. With that, thank you all for watching. I'll hand it back to the folks at Capital Factory. Jim, I think you're taking this over from here. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon.